Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the CHAPS Chat Cats, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name is Jake, and I'm joined in the virtual studio by a full complement of chaps. It's Johnny, it's Sambo. How are we?
Good. How are
Going
you?
very well.
Oh, I'm exceedingly good, John. Exceedingly good.
That's good.
Keen to get into a big old fat podcast with you. That's fat with a PH. Yeah, very, very excited to get into recording. Fat. It's like fat, but make it pharaoh. Yeah, excited to get into this podcast tonight. It's a girthy show, even girthier for Patreon subscribers on the Hoops Crew tonight. We are looking at round 2, Geelong. The Cats' comeback falls short in round 2 against the Saints. Then we're going to duck over where we really unpack the girth of the show on Patreon. We jump into some news. There's some contract extension stuff for 4 different Geelong players. We'll talk a little bit about Tom Stewart's injury from this game and the update we've received on that. Sambo will break down Chris Scott's presser post-game, and then we will dive into an early look at Cats v Lions round 3. We'll do some trivia on that. We'll test the boys' knowledge there and preview that game. So that is what is to come. Loving seeing the numbers on Patreon swelling, the ranks of the Hoops Crew Army. So yes, very much appreciate people jumping in on board that particular medium. Chaps, before we get into the public part of the show, we need to have a quick word from our highly glorious sponsor. The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase. All right, chaps, are you ready to rock and roll into round 2?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir. Where's the sound drops, Colin? Come on.
Come on, Colin.
We want to get in. Get on your bike, Colin. Make it happen. What are you doing? Life is for the
Bring back
living.
The wheel of pain.
Beautiful.
Oh, we're not thinking
You will, Colin.
spending any time on it.
Because every 6 weeks, 3 months, whatever it is.
3 months.
All right, the round 2 recap. I'm going to launch us in here. Boy, oh boy, a lot to get to. So I will reframe the game for you just in case you've wiped it from your memory. Chaps, I'm going to start like this. The year is 2228. The Australian Football League now operates amidst the ash of a once mighty world dragged into the shadows of nuclear fallout. Each week, football clubs from across the country vie to bring honour to what remains of their fan bases, who cluster around communal flat screens in the gaping corpses of bombed-out high-rise apartment buildings and abandoned multi-storey car parks that sag and wilt beneath the crush of society's ruin. There are several footballing strongholds left, each bringing with it a unique pilgrimage for the travelling band of warriors who maintain a tenuous grip on post-apocalyptic survival by feeding their families playing a national game that is now their only path to wealth and glory. No hobby farms in the ash rain of Armageddon. The most arduous trip is via the subterranean fallout fortress of the Saint Killer Saints football cartel, ruled by ruthless and petulant warlord Boss Lion III, a domineering degenerate who loves nothing more than to destroy teams from the overworld by drowning their hopes and dreams in the flood of his cavernous lair. The Saints Football Cartel are eternally mid-table brawlers, perennial holders of 10 and 12 records, but Boss Lion III makes a hobby of crippling high flyers and hopefuls, fancying himself a kingmaker on the ladder to heavens his teams can only dream of climbing. He lounges across his filthy throne, feeding his squirming, bossling children via rows of quivering purple teats on the underside of his belly. A premiership hopeful approaches, begging Boss Lion III to raise his thumb and allow them passage through his subterranean hellhole that he has fashioned into a personal playground. The hand hovers in the air. The fate of a football club hangs in the clammy balance of his palm. Boss Lion III smiles a greasy, wet smile. Nah, he rasps. The Saints Football Cartel launch their merciless attack. All that to look forward to for your children's children, but here in 2025, Ross Lyon and his Saints are crafting a knack for beating the Geelong Football Club routinely at the Fallout Vault, and Saturday evening was no exception. The Saints ambushed a bewildered and fumbling Bailey Smithless Cats side, peeling off 8 of the game's first 10 goals by the 10-minute mark of the second quarter. They hit Geelong on the counter, moving the ball at blinding speed by hand, not allowing the Cats to lock things down in the front part of the ground or have time to set up their usual net of blonde hair and headbands. When Tom Stewart departed the game, lesser teams may have crumbled, but Geelong found fight on the back of spirited efforts from youngsters like Jai Clark, Mitch Nevitt, and Ted Closey, as well as a vigorous ruck performance from Mark Blixarves and Jezza Cameron marauding on a wing. The bleeding was stemmed by halftime, and even when the Saints pushed their gap out to 40 again early in the third term, Geelong began to seize control of the match. Trailing by 27 at the final change of ends, the Cats took the match by the scruff of the neck in the last quarter and had 4-1 on the board within 15 minutes, and the home team's lead was cut to a teetering 11 points. Boss Lion III quivering with explosive rage in his coaching box. St Kilda suddenly couldn't escape their back half. The Fallout Vault was under siege. Jack Henry and Connor O'Sullivan, ascendant Surf Coast Angels, outmarking opponents under the roof to repeatedly send the ball back into attack. The Cats added 4 behinds in the final 15 minutes without reply, but could not produce a pair of game-winning goals to steal victory at the death. Final score, 15-8-98. The Saints, 13-31-91. Geelong, the Cats suffering defeat in the wasteland. But, Johnny, there are portents of possibility in the loss that leaves us with much to ponder here on a Monday night or a Tuesday whenever you're listening. And we'll start with thoughts from you, Brother John Doe.
Yes.
Where to?
Well, Brother Meachimus the First. It was an interesting game. Sort of a bit frustrating at first half of the game. Just Cats not able to take control in any form of the ball or the conditions, even though it was under the roof. But yeah, the Saints just were able to, let's say, have the last, I don't know, was it 2021? You said we last beat them at Marvel. They've just got that really good of knowing how to play that ground, which is a good sign of it, which is what they'll play hope for being their home ground. They want that home ground advantage, and they definitely have it over the Cats because they just were much cleaner, much more confident in the way they moved the ball. The Cats just seemed a bit standoffish, as you said, Sam. They just seemed a bit more hesitant than the Saints when they were either kicking it or going for like a soccer or a handball or for the ball. But the positive of the game is they found their rhythm. They found the way to move the ball better. They found a way to get there first and use the conditions better. And it just needed to go on a few more minutes. We probably could have won it, but even if there was those few minutes, we still had to take our chances. And we had every chance to win that game throughout that last quarter, third quarter, and we just weren't able to grab those opportunities, whether it be a drop mark from Shannon Neal, a couple of drop marks from Shannon Neal, or missed shots from Dangerfield and Atkins, and I'm not sure who else is. Yeah, like every player shot at goal could have won that game for the Cats, but they just weren't able to grasp it fully, which I think they'll be disappointed in. But overall, I think we can go away from this game going, that was a loss, but it's not a it doesn't feel like a demoralizing loss. It feels like a very disappointing that we lost the way we did, that we weren't able to show up from the start. But it was also really pleasing to see that Dangerfield, even though on the night I was saying, get Dangerfield in the middle. Why isn't Dangerfield in the middle? Looking back on it, you go, well, it's a good sign of faith in that young midfield that Chris Scott and the coaching panel is going, we've got trust that these young guys can turn it around. And they did. But one of the best players in the midfield was Jai Clark. He had some exceptional passes inside 50 from the centre square, which were pinpoint perfect to the leading players. Atkins, again, was brilliant in that last half. In the third and fourth quarter, he really stepped in. Connor O'Sullivan was really good. He was excellent in that back line, looked solid especially after Stewart went down. He looked like he was in control and was really a stone wall in that defensive, especially in that last quarter. Like a lot of this happened in the last quarter, which is a shame, but it's probably one of those games where you want this result to happen now. And you can go, well, this is where we failed early on. And we picked it up, got it fixed throughout the game. That means during the week, for the rest of the season, for the next 22 games, we've got an opportunity to rectify and get more experience in these young guys. And it's just going to be better for the Cats, beneficial. Because as they say, a win, if we'd won that, we could have papered over some of the underlying issues in the midfield and sometimes of the defence. But a loss like that makes you a bit more focused on those issues. So I know it's frustrating to lose a game. It's also can be beneficial to lose a game that way. And also knowing that we could have won that quite easily if we had just applied the focus and were able to withstand Saints' pressure a bit more. But on the other hand, St Kilda were pretty flawless throughout that first half and really put us to the sword. And at the end, they were the better team and they handled the conditions better. They took the opportunities better when they had them. The ruck is just an absolute monster who out-rucked the Koning, but it was pleasing to see Blixavs be able to take it right up to him and help turn the game. But yeah, I'm disappointed, but I'm also looking forward to the rest of the season, especially with this young midfield, to see what they can produce.
Yeah, definitely. I'll hand pass to Sambo. Your opening statements on the game?
Yeah, like I mean, you guys have summed up the way the game traveled pretty well, so I don't want to get too much into that. I guess I'll just trim down basically just to how I feel about it. In retrospect, but also at the time, and that is not. I don't think many people are losing their bundle, from what I can tell. But I do feel like I think I'm even less stressed about that result than a lot of people were and are. Like, it. I don't know. It felt really bad in that first quarter, but it didn't feel outside of the narrative. Do you know what I mean? Like, it didn't feel like, wait, hold on, pump the brakes. I thought our season was going this way because I guess I've got in my head how long a season is, and this is not unusual. And especially, it's not even unusual. It's definitely not unusual to lose games early in the year. It's not unusual for us to lose to the Saints at Marvel. Like, that's part of the plan at this point. At this point, it's happened so consistently. It's like, oh well, yeah, that happens. And losing Bailey Smith was probably my first. We always say you got to be more than one player, but we saw pretty. I had this belief in the way he was going to affect the team throughout the off season, and I feel like we saw in round one how immediate and impactful that was. It kind of made you realize, and you and I discussed this, Jake, that actually maybe we were discussing this when you were there as well, John. That like the impact. I mean, the midfield over the last few years without Cam Guthrie specifically, people have talked about it kind of dismissively, and we've often taken offense to people kind of going, "Oh, it's not a star-studded midfield; it's their weakest sort of area, blah, blah, blah. And we took offense to it. And I think having seen Bailey Smith in there for a round, you kind of go, well, I think they were being harsh on the players that were in there, but they were being accurate as well, in that the players that we had are superstars. The Atkins, Holmes when he's in there, Dangerfield when he's in there, Stewart when he rolls up. We've got some really, and that's just, the obvious ones off the top of my head. But we have not had that player, that accumulator that just gets in there, wins 30 touches, and it makes it and provides to those other guys that I just mentioned. And so I think you can win a game of football. You can win a lot of games of football. You can win a premiership without that player, because we did essentially. So it can be done, but as soon as you see that Freo game, you go, oh, but it's way easier to not do it without that player. It's way easier to have that player in. So all of that to say that, yeah, as soon as Bailey Smith went out, I thought, especially in this environment against the Saints, I went, it's particularly the game that I don't want to be lacking Bailey Smith. And then for Stewart to go down, I kind of felt like this whole game could have been like that first quarter. Because, I mean, we talk about it in terms of halves, but it felt more like a first quarter. Like the first half was definitely worse on the whole than the second half. But it's really that, like, they put on 6 goals to our 1 in that first quarter. And beyond that point, like if we're not counting behinds so much, like goals wise, we were even second quarter, third quarter, and then we outscored, like kicked more goals than them in the fourth quarter. And even including behinds, like the second quarter, I think we only lost by 2 behinds. So even in that second quarter, we'd started to eke it back a little bit, but so much damage was done early. But I kind of felt very positive from the outset of that sort of second quarter, halftime sort of break, where I went, if we can make this competitive, even going to the fourth quarter, I said to you guys, if we can just have a competitive fourth quarter, I'm happy. I didn't think we were going to get, personally, and I'm an eternal optimist, so I'm not saying this is we're hopeless, we can't win. I just didn't think we were going to do that. I didn't think we were going to get within 2 kicks. I really felt like I would have been happy with a 3 to 4 goal margin. Not happy, but like at peace with those positives that we're going to get into that you've already talked about a little bit, John. The youth and the way we had to change the game plan, roll with the punches, lose Smith, lose Stewart, essentially lose Cameron out of the forward line because he got thrown back. To be that competitive and to almost steal it. And, I've seen a lot of people online say, not a lot of people because I don't go on that line. I probably saw 2 people say this, and I'm just equating it to the whole internet. I've seen some people, no, it's not that. Like some people say like, oh, we could have won it, but we wouldn't have deserved it. And I've said this before. I remember when we lost to Tigers at one point specifically, I remember, and going, we could have pinched that game, but we wouldn't have deserved it. And there was a game last year, I can't remember who it was against, but I said the same thing. And I kind of go back on that a little bit in terms of who deserves to win a game of football. Like, did we deserve to lose the prelim? Did we deserve for Max Holmes to go down and essentially hobble us for a whole prelim? Like, yeah, and then you go,
team that wins deserves it.
The Lions went on to win the whole thing. So had we beaten them in the prelim, does that mean in the context of the universe, they deserve to win that game because they were meant to go on? It's a weird thing to say. Had we come back and won that game, I would not have been saying, I don't know if we deserved that. I feel like we deserved a lot. Like, you've done the effort, you've put in the effort, and you've done the work to win the game. So that was just a weird little wrinkle that I think I'm trying to get out of my vocabulary. That like, we could have pinched it, but wouldn't have deserved it. I just think it's an odd take. The more I think about it, yeah, very rambling thoughts. But I didn't want to get into too many specifics of how the game ran so much. It's just I felt okay about it. And there was those 2 specific things that were just funny in terms of I had to honor my word, because I said, if we can be competitive in this fourth quarter, I'm going to be happy. And we really were. So I had to be happy. And then we were talking about Tom Atkins and how good he was, and how many disposals he had. And we went, but let's check out his disposal efficiency. And And I went, if it's anything over 54%, I'm happy. And then Johnny looked up and was like, it's 55%. And I had to go, I'm happy. I said I'd be happy. I'm happy with 55%. So it was just
Absolutely.
a couple of funny moments where I really had to honor my word, sit in it and go, well, I said I wouldn't sook. So the universe has literally said, don't sook because we gave you exactly what you just asked for. So you know what? Yeah, as a round 2, I'm okay.
It was an opening quarter too that was the difference. You know, the Saints come in and they boot 6-1-37 to 1-4-10. And thereafter, Geelong outscored the Saints 12-9-81 to 9-7-61 the rest of the game. So for the next 3 quarters, Geelong outscored the Saints. After halftime, Geelong had them 8-7-55 to 5-3-33. They went goal for goal in the second term. Geelong kicked 4, the Saints kicked 4. The third term, the same thing again. Saints kicked 4, we kicked 4. The final term, we kicked another 4, they kicked 1. So, but it's funny. For me, this was one of those results that, everyone, and again, it's not everyone. You'll see people who are saying we were atrocious, we were abysmal, all this sort of stuff. I just felt like the word that came to mind for me, because again, we laid 75 tackles, I think it was. We're averaging 75 tackles. We're averaging 82 for the season. Now, the Saints laid 88 themselves, but we put on 22 tackles inside 50 to their 19, at 46 1%ers to their 32. We won contested possession 146 to 137. I felt like one of the biggest things that came to my mind about the whole thing was just cleanliness. We just lacked cleanliness we never lacked for effort. But we lacked cleanliness in how we picked the ball up, in how we gave the ball to each other, whether it was by hand or foot, just things and it was only off by probably maybe 15%. We dropped marks inside 50. We didn't manage to lock the ball inside 50 in that first quarter. This was a big thing I took away from the loss to Port Adelaide at Cardinia Park last year. First quarter, so many of Port's scores came 90 seconds after Geelong almost scored themselves. And it was drop marks. It was, fumbled marks. It was missed shots at goal. They get the ball, kick it out and go straight down. I really felt like that was the first quarter. Just Geelong, they couldn't stick tackles. And that was something probably followed throughout the night, that they put arms around someone and the Saints were able to just get that handball away really quickly before or get an arm free. But yeah, I don't know about you, chaps, but just cleanliness. It was just like if we were 15 to 20% cleaner in all aspects of our game, I don't think that, there was something like, our game style's been exposed or our effort's been exposed. I just think it was just a fundamental lack of cleanliness that really, really, really hurt us.
Yeah, absolutely. As we say, and as you just said, the Saints were cleaner. And when you're cleaner, you're able to use the ball easier. And yeah, the Cats fumbled so much more than what the Saints did in that first quarter. You could just see every time a Cat went for it, they either just misjudged the ball or just weren't able to pick it up cleanly. And the Saints, they were just running at full speed and picking it up with ease and using it really smartly. So yeah, and it just shows you don't have to be off by that much and a team will beat you. But it's a close competition and you only got to be off that little bit and it could be looking at 41-point deficit at halftime. That's what happened to the Cats. Just off that little tiny bit and you get done. So yeah, I think it's one of those things where you can train a little bit, but on the night, it's just going to be what it is. And you can just either worry about it or just go, we're not going to worry too much about not being too clean. Let's just get our hands to the ball and it will eventually work. And it did for the Cats on the night. They eventually got it to work. And you could see once we got it working in our favour, we were probably definitely the dominant team. It stayed in our forward 50. 90% of that last quarter? and we just couldn't get the goals on. Like, a bit unlucky with the score review. That was one of those things that, looking back on it, yeah, probably wasn't a goal, but it's still in the night. You just go, that's a goal. Just give us a goal. God damn it. But saying that, we had plenty other opportunities to kick that goal, and we just couldn't get there in the end.
And I mean, we scored some freakish goals. We scored some snaps and some sort of dirty goals, and then like Ollie Dempsey getting his soccer in that just should not happen. So I think that's something you can rely on for the Cats at the moment, is this variety of scores. But probably what we weren't doing was just converting the easy ones. It's kind of like
Stengel, straight in front.
It was kind of like we were putting the icing on the cake and not baking the cake. It's like all these crazy, wow, look at that goal. And then there was no cake underneath it. Of just like, you just need that consistent. You need to Dangerfield. That was probably an easier kick than the one he got against the Saints when we were there live. Like, he's not a super consistent, not the most consistent set shot taker, but that particular set shot, you kind of go, this is so within his wheelhouse. And Stengel was actually the one that that kick was one of the ones that Chris Scott brought up in his press conference, was sort of saying, like, fundamental mistakes add up, not only in terms of the game, missing a goal obviously impacts the score line, but they impact the way the game runs, the way the team is, the confidence. The Saints were red hot. If we take two of those opportunities and just kick easy goals, it's a completely different thing. The Saints might be tactically different because they're going, we're leaking goals here. We got to move this around a little bit. We might be a little bit more buoyed by that and a little bit more confident and have a bit more dare and a bit more confidence, because you mentioned, Johnny, that I sort of said that they look hesitant. And I just want to clarify, because it's funny, having watched the Chris Scott press conference, how much, and I'm assuming you haven't watched it, Jake, but how much you're echoing things that Chris Scott said. And I am making it my mission to watch all of his press conferences, but I don't do it until right before the podcast because I want to form my thoughts. I don't want to just be coming on here glazing Chris Scott, because we just do it without trying, which is basically what we're doing now. But it's the same. The specifics of indecision, hesitant. Sorry, the specifics of the hesitation is, I want it to be clear that I don't think they were like lacking effort or want or grunt or grit or any of these words that are being thrown around. It was not confident was what was leading to that hesitation, because they just weren't kicking instinctively, knowing the kick was going to be good, knowing the teammate was going to be there where the kick was going without looking. Whereas the Saints are the absolute opposite of that. Sometimes you're like, how do they even know there was a player there? And that was us last week. That was like, we were so in sync and on song, and you can't put that down to effort or want to win, and you can't even really put that down to too much structural stuff. It's a vicious cycle of, when it's going wrong, it keeps going wrong because you're losing confidence in it, and when it's going right, you keep trying it and it keeps working, and you keep trying it and it just keeps going.
Yeah, it's crazy, just as you said, that luck it plays a part in the game, and when, as you just said, when you're on, everything just goes your way, and you just get those lucky bounces, those lucky balls where it just skids underneath the player in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, it's that little bit of luck that just plays into it. And when you are confident in yourself, of course you're going to pick up on all that, so-called luck, and you're going to be a bit more at the ball. But when you're sort of like thinking, if I stuff this up and they get it, they could easily get another goal. It does play in the mind ever so slightly. But yeah, I don't think it's an effort thing. It's just that idea of going, I've got to make this perfect. And it makes you not be perfect because you're thinking about it too much.
You're going,
instead of just going,
do I hand pass it or do I kick it? And then once I decide to kick it, am I kicking it over there or over here? Am I doing long or short? And by that time,
and then you're on the ground.
and you cock it up. Yeah. But yeah, and also like the decision making as well, like of umpires, and this like prefixing this, I'm not complaining about the umpires, but like the momentum thing is real for luck and skill and all that stuff, and the crowd and the umpires as well. Like, how many times are we calling for holding the ball and not getting it? And not to say we were right even 20% of the time, but we're calling for it. And then it went back the other way. We started coming back, and the Cats are on top, and you just start getting holding the ball free kicks. And like that's when I turned to you guys. I was like, man, momentum. Like some of these calls, I'm not arguing with it, and I'm not like saying the call was necessarily wrong, but like it's one of those that you have to acknowledge it. When you're acknowledging it the other way, you're like, oh, we can't buy a free kick, and then it just turns when you do the work and put in the like. Well, you get that luck and that real zing going, and the crowd gets behind you, and the decisions do just start coming your way. Like, you just got to we've got to be more like open to that fact of going, this is a part we're gonna have to accept how this is going to go against us, and if we can get ourselves back in it, it will come back the other way. But you almost have to earn that momentum back and get the crowd behind you, get the crowd on their feet, get the umpires behind you. Like, it doesn't decide a game, but it's one of those factors that is actually kind of in your control a little bit. Like umpiring, the poor umpiring kind of can be a little bit like something you can like lasso and wrestle over onto your side.
Especially because umpires are just people, and you can get carried away quite easily. And there's plenty of times throughout the game I was like, how did we get away with that? Oh, yeah, it's so many moments where if you look at the game and watch the umpire and you go, they've missed so many free kicks, or they've given away so many silly free kicks, or they've missed ones that we should have been done for, or it's an interesting one. But they do their best.
There's an example in the you go, John.
No, I'm finished. You go.
Oh, there's an example in the NFL of Patriots coach Bill Belichick telling his players, I think it was in the first quarter of the Super Bowl, he was like, just keep holding your player illegally. And because he's like, the referees will only call it a couple of times. They won't want to keep stopping the game. And so if you just keep doing it, we will eventually get away with it. And I think it's just a great story, because it's like, that's like, that feels like umpires are human. Like, umpires are human. I think they do a tremendous job in a really hard game. But there's things like, how do you as an umpire accurately call, the classic one is with Higgins, to the umpire, from the umpire's view, it looks like there's a fist grabbing a heap of Higgins' jumper. Looks like Zach Guthrie's turning him around. But when you see from the other side, which the umpire couldn't see, Higgins has Henry's arm locked, and it's his own hand grabbing his jumper and pulling him around. I mean, it's impossible. It's an impossible job. I don't want them to use more video replay so that we can like zoom in and get every, we can forensically analyze pixel by pixel. I really do think at a certain point we just have to go, you know what? Everyone's out there trying their best. The players, the umpires, etc. And sometimes stuff gets missed. It is what it is.
And I think it's definitely a fun, great part of the game as well. Those parts where you just go, oh, come on. But, as long as you don't overdo it and track them down and harass them. But, in game while you're watching at home, you just get upset with the umpire. I think it's part of the fun that you just in that moment and you get frustrated at the umpire. Like, it's going to happen. You can't deny it's not going to happen to you because you get invested. But it's also part of that enjoyment of the game as well. Like, you go, oh yeah, we got that really sneaky free kick. Good on the umpires for treating us fairly for once. It's all part of the good fun.
Well,
just gonna drag.
But as long as you
drag
keep
us back to.
sensible.
I just want to drag us back to some of the execution stuff, because there was some things to match up with what you were talking about, Sambo, like, and in terms of the cleanliness and the shots at goal. Our top three, in terms of goal accuracy or shots at goal rather. So we had Tyson Stengel, Shannon Neal, Ollie Dempsey, Ted Closey, and Patrick Dangerfield all had 3 shots at goal. 4 of those 5 players hit 2/3 of their chances. So 66.7% of their goal kicking opportunities. Patrick Dangerfield had 3 shots at goal, did not kick a single goal. He had 0% goal accuracy. Brian Myers and Ollie Henry, both 2 shots at goal, 0% accuracy. Jai Clark had 2 shots at goal, 0% accuracy. But look, I would be looking more probably at Ollie Henry, Brian Myers, and Patrick Dangerfield. 7 shots between those players, did not kick a goal. I feel like that makes a massive difference, and they're all experienced players. You know, Jai Clark is just coming in, relatively new to the team. I think, yeah, we needed some experienced players to kick a couple of goals. If 2 of those 7 go in off the boot of those players, then we win. But they don't. And I think that's just a good example of the fine margins and where games are won and lost. And then, you know, you've got players like Jack Higgins had 5 shots for goal. He kicked 4 of them. He had an 80% goal kicking accuracy. So I think those things hurt you. And little uncharacteristic things hurt you. Brian Myers' long shot for goal when he had guys queuing up in the middle of the attacking 50, and instead of cutting it across, he went for goal himself, was very uncharacteristic, I thought, of Brian Myers. So it only takes a few small moments.
Isn't it funny too?
We've talked about. Sorry, you go.
Just quickly.
No, go.
Who was it that took the shot and it fizzled, and we went? We're not mad at that though. Was that Clark or was that Closey?
Clark.
It was Clark.
Yeah,
it was
Clark.
Clark. He was running in, took a disposal, and running in. It was just, it was an awful shot, but we went. Like, we don't mind that. And I'm not saying we're wrong in saying this, but it is just funny, isn't it? How you've got not different expectations, but you like players perform different roles, and it did just feel really out of the ordinary for Myers to do that, because I mean he will kick some good goals and he will kick some freak goals from the boundary line, but it's kind of when he's under pressure and he's got no other option and he just pulls these things out of his ass and you go, wow, that was incredible.
Fine, I'll kick it.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely don't want to hate on him too much because he sets up so many goals. You go, okay, he wanted one and he went for it and it didn't work. Oh well. But yeah, you do kind of go, I think it was emblematic of how in our heads we were at that point. When you're like, we're not only executing poorly, but we're executing things that we don't normally do poorly. So we're like, people are attempting to play outside of themselves, and thus that just further perpetuates the execution errors, because now you're doing things that you're not versed in. So yeah, go on with what you were going to say, Jake. But I just thought it was interesting where it's like the reality of just having a shot and missing is not an issue, because what Clark did, it's like, okay, that's what we want you doing more. Keep trying that. Whereas with Myers, it was kind of like, no, I don't actually want you trying that one.
Yeah, and it was also probably like the time and the place and the scenario. You know, if anything, I feel like my memory of the job. Yeah, and it's just, I guess, that's what like Myers. You think he's just got better vision than everybody. You know, whereas Clark, it's kind of like you got to keep the game simple for him at this point in his career. And it was just like, gather it, kick it, you know, run through 50 and have a shot. But, you know, maybe you could level that at him and go, hey, that is the difference. That is the difference between what you're going to be doing now and what you're going to be doing in, say, 20 games time, is like you will look up and put it to the advantage of Shannon Neal over the back, or, you know, draw someone onto a lead. We saw him deliver a couple of the game's best kicks inside 50, like a couple of absolutely raking. It was the one he put back across the 50, I think to Shannon Neal, and then one from the center square, just a raking ball that hit somebody on a lead. So there's some nice signs there. We've talked about cleanliness. We've talked about, you know, the Bailey Smith absence. It sort of shocks me how quickly he's become a player that you're like, oh God, you know, I was saying all off season, I'm not on the hype. Yeah, one game in, I'm like, God, I miss him. I do want to hit the ruck thing a little more before we get to our votes. So You had 3 players who rucked the majority of contests on the night: Rowan Marshall, Sam De Koning, and Mark Blixarves. Now, Rowan Marshall dominated the raw total numbers. He attended 76 ruck duels. He won 32 hitouts and put 10 to advantage. But Mark Blixarves actually had the best performance in terms of the percentage of hitouts won and put to advantage. So he won 50% of his 36 ruck contests, and he put 33% of the hitouts he won to the advantage of his teammates. He also coupled that with the equal third most clearances on the ground. He was Geelong's equal leading clearance getter with 6. He had 16 disposals, a goal, and a goal assist. I already know where I sit on this issue, and I tweeted about it, and I talked to you boys about it, but where are you lads positioned on the old Sam De Koning ruck project? I know it's only 2 weeks in, but has your position changed at all? What did you feel about how the game flowed in the ruck for the Cats, and then what sort of grew off that or didn't?
Do you want one of us to answer this, or and like I'm just aware we're getting pretty girthy already. Do you want us to be like both waffling about all the questions, or do you want are you wanting one of us to answer?
If someone's got a really like succinct take on it, I would love to hear your opinion. I don't mind. You can raffle it off between yourselves.
Really. I just think it's
Sambo,
definitely a work in progress. But,
you are the weakest link.
But yeah, it's a work in progress, absolutely, and he's not up to scratch against the best ruckman. Absolutely not yet.
Yeah, my succinct
Hey, mate.
take on it, beyond whether it was good or bad, is just when we've got Blixarves in there, I just don't see why we're not using Blixarves more, and more or less just using De Koning to give him a break. And maybe De Koning does the hit outs down back, especially when Stewart's gone. Like, once Stewart went out, it surprised me that they persisted so long with De Koning. Now, I'm not saying it disappointed me or annoyed me or they shouldn't have done it. But from my purview, what I would do is, in that scenario, roll Sam De Koning back, have Blix do 100% of the ruck work, because we've already rolled Cameron back to kind of cover some of the Blixarves like wing stuff. And also some of the back stuff that Blixarves was doing as well. And just only roll Sam De Koning up when Blixarves goes off for a rest. Like, that's how I would have done it. I'm not saying that's right, but that's my take on it, is that I think if this is a work in progress, I'd like a little bit more of the progress to be happening between games, between seasons. It feels a bit rough to feel like you're seeing it happening before your eyes, like you're watching the the lessons be learned in real time, and it can be a bit brutal. Like, I just don't think he's as dynamic around it either, De Koning. So Blixarves, like, in some ways, you don't want him in the ruck because he takes away, like, you lose what he brings elsewhere. But the thing with him is his second, third, and fourth efforts are so good. He goes into the ruck and he still brings that additional midfielder stuff. Yeah, I guess it's maybe because De Koning apparently wants to be in the ruck, and that's why they're persisting with it so much. So I won't question them if they keep going. But yeah, from my point of view, yeah, I don't know. I haven't loved it the last 2 weeks.
I would love if someone out there who is more numbers focused, if someone out there has a way to tell us, like, what scores came about for Geelong while Blixarves was playing ruck versus not, because watching it, it felt like every time we had a center bounce that involved Mark Blixarves, within a couple of minutes we were scoring a goal. Like, we would score, yeah, we would have a shot. Like, I for me, and we just talked about it the night, we think Sam De Koning is like super talented. I think he's a really good key back. We've always spoken on this podcast since like year one of Sam De Koning that if he takes a couple of losses in a contest, like we saw it happen to him in a game against Charlie Dixon, where the shoulders kind of slump and he gets this kind of sooky kind of like, fuck. oh, well, I guess it's not my night sort of body language thing going on. And I think you can get away with it a bit down back because you've got help. In the ruck, it's you.
Mm.
You are the pivot point around the whole stoppage thing operates. I think what Blixarves for me does better at the moment than Sam de Koning, and you would expect him to because he's a veteran, is that if he loses the hit out, he instantly just becomes a defensive player and applies a tackle. If he is halfway into the jump and is like, oh shit, I'm out of position here, he just gives up on the hit out and becomes a midfielder. Like there's a selflessness, and like I think Blixarves has the memory of a goldfish, like a lot of veteran players do when it comes to failure. They just forget it. It's like, oh yeah. Yes, it's just like I'm just wiping that from my mind, and I
don't know if
feel
we're
like
harping. Oh, sorry,
it's the old Jeremy Clarkson. How sad,
I just don't know if
anyway.
like. Yeah. I just think Blitz moves on really quickly, and I think you have to be because in the ruck, that next contest is coming really quickly, and you've got to be ready to go and compete again. And so, yeah, at this point in time, I think playing Blitz in the ruck gives us a better chance to win more games. My position has always been I would love to be wrong and surprised, and by the end of the season, I'm going, fuck, I'm an idiot. Sam de Koning is like a great ruck, but at the moment, I would much prefer Mark Blixarves to be playing in there and Sam de Koning to be playing down back. Just my opinion. Let's do votes. Let's jump into some votes. We'll empty extra notes and thoughts out on the Patreon show. So, Johnny, you weren't here last week, so you can lead us off this week. I want you 1, 2, and 3. We'll let you get through yours, and then we'll each do ours.
No worries. I just getting the votes up. All right, I'm going one vote. I'm going for Connor O'Sullivan. I thought it was a solid game, especially in that last quarter. He was very, very good in the defense. Nice, rock solid. Had what do you think would be an ill shot at goal? If it was a shot at goal, or if he was just trying to get inside 50 towards the end of the game. But as we said on the night, it's those moments where he's a young player. He had a bit of a rush of blood and gone, oh, I've got a big kick. I could nail this goal and win us a game. So, if you give young players for doing that, but I thought the rest of his game was exceptional. A really good, solid outing. Cementing his spot nicely. I'm going to give him my 2 votes to Jai Clark for that. That's pretty good first half. I thought he was one of the better Cats players in that first half, applying pressure, trying to get to the ball, doing his utmost to get the Cats going forward. And as we mentioned, a few absolutely spectacular deliveries inside 50. And I think we're starting to see the glimpses of why everyone was pretty excited to get him at the Cats at number 7, which is good. It's good to see the glimpses, and hopefully we can see more. And my 3 votes are going to Mark Blixarves because he was just an excellent player. But yeah, he was a dead hand in the ruck, getting us inside 50. Did he kick a goal? He was close to getting a goal. But yeah, he was just everywhere, as he always is. And I thought he was, just simply outstanding on the night.
Love it. Sambo?
So as always, flip-flopped around a bit. And I'll be honest, these I'm only backing these up with stats now because I've been away from the computer all day and I only have my iPad and my phone with me. And for some reason, I don't know if anyone else had this issue. Probably not, because not many other people are probably trawling the stats now, 3 days later. But it had last week's stats for our players on the mobile and the iPad, both the app and the website, like the mobile version of the website. So it said it had all the Saints players right. but all of Geelong's individual stat
The
getters
Geelong's
to the
players.
point where Bailey Smith was in.
Oh, we won
in
then.
our best, our like highest in our the AFL fantasy points and stuff. So I couldn't back up my decisions with stats at all until I sit here now. So
I don't back
will.
mine up with stats,
I will.
so
Okay.
it's all good. I go by feel.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Yeah. And so I think my one went to Mark Blixarves, probably a bit stiff to only get the one, but again, I think a lot of it comes from the fact that, like you were saying, Jake, someone else who knows more about this particular area. Like, we love to spout stats and talk stuff about areas that we feel pretty confident in. First one to put my hands up and say, I don't know the ruck role that well, and how it translates to the rest of the game, like how it ripples out. So, because the more I watch, the more I'm learning how important it is, but I don't necessarily know the minutia of exactly how and why it's that important. So part of that comes from the fact that I gave Blixars I wanted him in there, but I was not so sure about how it translated. But definitely watching it just felt like he was so important to that win. The win, oh my god, to the near win, to that comeback, the 3-quarter win that we had in the last 3 quarters. My 2 went to Tom Atkins. Yeah, I just thought he was immense. In a game where our midfield was severely depleted. You know, we're not rolling Dangerfield back. We're without Bailey Smith, and Tom Stewart's like our secret weapon in the nuclear bunker, and he went down so early. So I think yeah, I mean, I loved some of the stuff Jai Clark did as well, but I just felt like Tom Atkins for me just brought basically what you want from Tom Atkins. Okay, so that performance is probably not going to win you a game on his back, but if you can couple that performance with a Bailey Smith getting 31 touches and doing what he does, you've got a deadly midfield. So Tom Atkins getting 20 disposals, that's an A+ for me from Tom Atkins. I think any more than sort of 18, 19 disposals, I'm happy with. Adam kicks a late 11 tackles. 6 clearances. I think he was equal team high, right, for clearances? Yes.
Yep.
I think he wasn't too shabby in the meters gained either. I can't find that stat right now.
136.
No, sorry,
So
136. But still not too bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just felt like that was the kind of performance I need from him. If the rest of the team can be doing what they do around him, I think that's the peak Tom Atkins performance, really. 55% disposal efficiency, as I said, passing grade. 11 contested
happy with
possessions. Yeah. have to back it up and be happy with that. Second on the team for contested possessions. Yeah, I thought he was immense, but immense in that way that he often is, where nobody gave a shit. No one was talking about him on the commentary team or anything. And that leads me to my 3 votes, which I think the disrespect for this player is real. And that's Jack Henry. I gave my 3 votes to Jack Henry.
Nice.
I don't know why it is. Like, I know when he has down games, everyone hates on him. And then when he has great games, nobody ever talks about him. I thought our backline did well. Like you said, Johnny Connor O'Sullivan had some really good moments, some game-saving moments. Lawson Humphreys made a couple of uncharacteristic errors, but apart from that, he was still essentially superhuman when you think about where he's at in his career and how good he is. And Lawson Humphreys, understandably, is getting a lot of votes from people. I'm not angry about them giving votes and love to Lawson Humphreys. But to me, it's kind of like then you look at Jack Henry, and I feel like Jack Henry is doing everything Lawson Humphreys does, but more often and more consistently because he's Jack Henry. He's more experienced. So it's that thing where I think he loses a bit of love because it's kind of like, he's always doing that, and he's only noteworthy when he's having a mare. So yeah, game high intercept possessions. I think he was game high contested marks as well, right? Or just marks in general.
Yeah.
team high. Sorry, third equal second on the ground for marks, but team high with marks. Meters gained. Again, he was sort of doing what he is expected to do around that 150 mark. I would think is pretty standard for him. But disposal efficiency was the other one I wanted to point out. Sorry, as I fumble around these freaking stats. Why can't you just have it all on the one sheet? Why do you have to go back and forwards between advanced and basic?
It's a great question.
Anyway, 15,
It is,
15 disposals all up. Am I right? And 93% disposal efficiency or something like that. 98, was it 98.3?
Yep.
So not game high.
I know we had 90.
But for anybody that had like a decent number of disposals, like Tom Stewart got 100%, but he only had like I think 2 or 3 disposals. To me, for Jack Henry to have 93.3 disposals, and 8 of those possessions were contested. And some of the, as I said, some of those marks that he took, it's not just he's getting bulk numbers of marks. Some of those were game-saving marks, and for some reason, I feel like O'Sullivan and Humphreys are getting a lot of love for their game-saving one-on-one marks. I think Henry was turning them in all day. When we were down, he was performing. When we were back on the run, he was performing, and he was stopping them on the counter. Like, yeah, in a world where we don't have Collar and Stewart goes out, and we're trying Sam de Koning in the ruck, Jack Henry is king. He's the absolute king of that back line. And I couldn't not give him some love. Sorry to ramble on and battle with the stats for so long.
No, I love it. I'm going 1 vote to the aforementioned Jack Henry. Had to get him in a vote, so I played around with the order a bit. Ended up going with him for 1. Just a stat to add to yours. 6 contested defensive one-on-ones he faced. He did not lose a single contested defensive one-on-one. And his kicking efficiency at 91.7%, just 2 turnovers for the game. You look like Zach Guthrie, 7 turnovers, Max Holmes, 6 turnovers, Brian Myers, 4, Lawson Humphrey, 4. Jack Henry was incredibly clean and almost unbeatable, particularly in the last part of the game where you thought St Kilda, they're going to get a breakout kick and mark here. And while Jack Henry was the player involved, they just didn't. He just monstered whoever he was on. So, yeah, absolutely love him. I'm giving 2 votes to Tom Atkins. Loved his game. I think it's these moments where, for me, when Stewart's not there and when Dangerfield's playing, a lot of the time up forward, Jack Henry to me is Tom Atkins for me is the spiritual captain. In another timeline, I think he is the captain of this Geelong team. And
you're all coming on board my
my
dream
theory
now.
cat. He's such a selfless player. I think by my count, he's laid 20 plus tackles across the first 2 weeks of the season, double digits both weeks. He was exceptional. But my 3 votes have to go to a player who, if I think about it on balance, probably in my top 2, 3, 4 favorite players for Geelong since I've been watching footy, and that is the freak, Geelong's very own carnival attraction, Mark Blixarves, who can just play fucking anywhere. And to have the 6 clearances, to have the goal, the 16 touches, it was the way in which he got around his teammates. He was often that first player. He was the first player to go to Ted Closey, I think, when Closey banged through that goal. His first goal, he was the player that dished the hand pass out, no look, to Ted Closey later in the game. So, yeah, for me,
Well,
Jake's gone.
It was a mic drop moment. For me, boom, he's gone.
Boom, gone, done. There he is.
He's back.
Am I back now? and my
Yeah.
return. So you missed my whole blurb about Blixarves?
No, it was all there.
No,
You
no,
literally
it was all there.
you left on the mic drop. You went, yes.
Oh,
So for me, yeah, and then you just went to black. So I honestly thought maybe you'd gone
I
accidentally
don't know.
got
The
thrown a
internet's
piece out
being
and
weird.
exited.
All right, let's.
Are we emptying?
Yeah, I'm out.
Emptying
But
some
we are actually out.
note sacks?
Goodbye.
Or are we doing that in the
Goodbye.
Patreon?
We're gonna we're gonna empty our notebooks, our note sacks, lighten our sacks on the Patreon part of the show. So if you want to get that part, if you want to help us unload our note sacks, come on over to Patreon, the Hoops Crew.
Oh, sorry, pubic listeners. That's for
Lovely.
the Patreon public.
Yeah.
Oh yes, sorry, yeah. Come on over to Patreon, the Hoops Crew. Get extended versions of our show. If you want the full girthy versions of the chaps, then come on over to Patreon. Make sure you go and check out Ben's tipping show, The Tipping Point, from Monday night. Make sure you tune in tomorrow night, Patreon subscribers, for my VFL, first week of VFL coverage. I'm going to be going through some player evaluation after Geelong beat Sandringham. So get into all of that Thursday night. Paul will be back with the Thursday night edition of the Paul James Show, the game preview as the Cats head to play the Lions. But we're going behind the paywall now. Thanks so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And until next time, go the mighty Cats.
Go
Cats.